Welcome to Overthinking episode 12, where we take fun, interesting ideas, overanalyze them, and run them to their logical conclusions, all in the name of exploration, education, and most importantly, entertainment.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Devin.
And we don't claim to be experts in any of the topics discussed here today. We simply find these ideas interesting as we hash them out in real time. Get ready to join us on this exciting, fun, and crazy ride to nowhere.
This week, we are being forged in the heart of a dying neutron star while our uncle rambles on about the responsibility of something or something else, and our parents are being shot in an alley filled with bats. In short, we are Bat Spider Thorman.
You outdid yourself this time. You went above and beyond.
That was so much fun to write.
I bet. I can imagine.
I couldn't remember what I wanted, but that ended up better anyway, so it's good.
No, it's good. It's good. It's been a while since we recorded, so we're definitely most people, to you, it didn't seem like a long time, although we did miss a week or so, production-wise, in the posting. But we're back. We're happy to be back. And first, before we get started, let's not forget, Devin, what are you drinking?
Dihydrogen monoxide.
Whoa, sounds very fancy. Obviously, you don't need to go into any further things because, that's responsible for all the deaths in the world. Every single death of every person.
There's a correlation, not a causation, but
true. There is.
No one's ever died without being exposed to that dihydrogen monoxide. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's not just people. That's animals, plants.
Yep. So just watch out. It's also the main product. Like, it's in cement. It's in a lot of different chemicals. So
it's the main byproduct of burning rocket fuel.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you're drinking that, dude, but whatever. You do you. And for our non-video
what are
listeners,
you drinking?
Oh, I'm actually drinking. Dihydra oxide.
Dihydra monoxide.
Monoxide, right? Because there's
Yep.
only one.
Yeah.
With some special additives.
Which like you're drinking coffee.
Nope.
Whoa.
It's a keto powder with MCT oil. And,
is that like CBD oil?
Nope.
Is that like an essential oil?
Nope. Completely different. I think. I honestly don't really know. My mom just got it. She's like, "This is good for you. Put it in stuff." I'm like, "Okay."
Does it taste good?
Yeah,
oh, nice.
It tastes really good, actually.
Nice. Cool.
So I'm like, this is supposed to be healthy for me, and it tastes super good because it has a little bit of cocoa in it, I think. So I really like cocoa and stuff, but without the sugar. Like, I made a chicken last night. I put a little bit of cocoa powder in there. It gives it a nice little smoothness to anything that you put. So, cooking tip of the day: put cocoa powder and a tiny bit of nutmeg in things to give it like a blast of savory, spicy flavor.
In like everything?
Not everything, obviously, but I put it in like a vegetable mixture, vegetable/fruit mixture. For on top of I made chicken things with lettuce wraps, lettuce boats, and I put on top of that, and it complemented the chicken really nice. So yeah, interesting flavors. If you want to surprise someone with an interesting flavor, definitely go for cocoa powder and nutmeg, but just use very little. That's the remedy. Don't use a lot. Yeah. You will regret it immediately because the powder will go into your mouth and nose. And you'll regret it afterwards, too, because it'll only taste like nutmeg.
Well, isn't everyone supposed to be wearing masks right now anyway?
So. I mean, not at home. So, let's get our brains warmed up, shall we? It's pretty early in the morning. This is the earliest we've ever recorded an episode. Let's go into our dark basement of our mind. Let's find that little golden chest in there. Let's open it up and let's get into Secrets Uncovered. So, it's worth it every. See, here's the thing. Okay,
it's so much better when you're trying not to be heard, though.
Here's the thing: is that I need to know how long to pause to make it easier at editing. Because if I don't pause when I edit, I have to cut every single line, and there's like 10 different things on top of each other. I have to cut every single one. I have to move it over. If I just wait, so if I make the sound to myself of what the stinger is, then I don't have to cut anything. I just put it in, and it saves me 30 seconds of editing time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
is that 30 seconds worth being like called out every single episode?
I mean, it's kind of funny. So maybe I think so. And so I'm trying to see, the problem is, okay, do you have a secrets uncovered? Because I have a dilemma with mine.
What's your dilemma?
My dilemma is that it ties into my topic, and it could get pretty long. So I think I'm gonna say here's what I'll say. I'll say this instead. I'm at a blank. I just blanked. I just totally blanked. Oh, that's what it is. So, I recently, I'll say this is my secrets uncovered, okay? Instead. Because I don't think I mentioned this on the last podcast, did I? That recently I've been really paying attention to my health, a lot. And I've been seeing a lot of doctors, doing a lot of tests. And I realized, I've never realized more, how many things I don't know about my own body. So it was really interesting to me to talk to a lot of these doctors, do a lot of these tests, and get some of these results that I don't even understand. I'm like, this is all going inside of me, and I have no idea what it is. And so I think that's what kind of opened my eyes that I actually need someone to interpret all this stuff and someone to actually tell me what to do, because I kind of had the idea. I was like, I'll just do it. I'll just eat what makes me feel good and don't eat what doesn't make me feel good. And then that's not going so well. So that's where we're at right now. Trying to enhance my brain thinker. I did talk about this last time. This is This is the exact same thing I talked about last week. Well, it's going even better now. Boom, there, take it. I can talk about whatever I want. It's half my podcast too. What about you, Devin? You got anything?
I got so much. I could probably do an entire episode's runtime of Secrets Uncovered since the last time we've recorded. But a couple days ago, so this is an interesting one. I guess I'll give two things here. One's extremely personal. One's something that anybody and everyone can actually apply. Okay. Most people, not everybody, but most people have been in a level of seclusion over the last month, 2 weeks, week, depending on where they're at in the country.
Yeah.
Because of COVID.
Yeah.
We're all stuck at home. And most people in that situation would very easily identify as having been isolated and by themselves. Mm-hmm. But if you're actually honest with yourself, you haven't been in solitude. You haven't taken any time actually by yourself. Oh. You haven't turned off technology. You haven't actually given yourself the chance to think. And it's something that I realized that every single part of my day is it's back-ended by music.
Yeah.
I wake up and the very first thing I do is read my Bible, but I read my Bible with music playing. And then when I switch to my morning routine, I switch the music. And then when I switch to being focused, I switch the music. Yeah. But I always have background music, so I'm never away from technology.
I'm surprised that you can read while listening to music. I can't do that.
You just gotta pick the right kind of music. If there's no lyrics.
No, even then. Even with no lyrics, I can't focus.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's something that I do it intentionally because giving yourself as many external triggers to what you're supposed to be doing. So it's just making the mental connection. But so that's the applicable to everybody. This last week, I decided, in recognizing that I was just going to give myself some time where I was actually alone with my thoughts. Which, I think on a subconscious level, most people are actually afraid of that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, totally. Why would we so naturally avoid it?
Right.
But if you're aware of it and you're just I'm going to go do that. So all I had was a notebook. Actually, my notebook's right next to me. All I had was a notebook. I actually went out to my old tree house because it's out there. And
nice.
It was a mess, which is exactly what I expected. But, it was nice. And I just kind of thought and let myself think the way that I thought and let anything that happened happen. I ended up writing a bunch of stuff down, and the biggest thing that came out of it was I realized two things. One was like, I don't actually have a clue what I want, like the slightest idea. And the biggest motivators that I've had in my life, I think, well, not all of them, but most of them, were at some point in my life honest motivators, and I didn't ever recognize that they weren't what was motivating me anymore.
Okay.
And so that was an interesting realization. And so that I don't know what I want, and I don't know what motivates me. But another thing that came out of it, though, was like for my business, for my personal life, I realized, based on everything that it is, like, I would not have 99% of the stress that I experience in my life if I just oriented things around doing, first and foremost, doing something simply because I find it exciting.
Yeah. Because you feel like you need to, right?
What?
Instead of doing things that you feel like you need to.
Right. And if I'm doing it because I'm excited about it, it changes the sale. It changes the interaction with the client. It changes the expectations, all in a way that reduces stress.
Yeah. Completely. And I get this. So I realize now, I'm like, I had so many better things to say. And kind of on the same vein, though, our talk about, you didn't use the words, but being the honey badger and doing some sales. You know all about that, right? What?
Not a clue what you're saying.
All right, wait. I got a honey badger. So the honey badger is
By the way, guys, that's an exposition tactic that you'll see in movies all the time. There has to be one ignorant character so that the audience can have it explained. I have no clue though.
Yeah, I know. Because I saw the blank look on your face. Come on, expand to full. I want to see you. Wait.
It's May.
Here we go. So I'm gonna wait. Let me.
Happy May.
Happy May, dude. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Okay.
Okay. With me, not with you guys. Sorry.
No. Oh, well,
you're listening in. You're not. Gonna be able to
listening.
See the okay.
That's the meme.
Okay.
Honey badger don't care. The honey badger is a really ferocious animal. It takes what it wants, doesn't care about any kind of threat that comes to it. It just goes and it does exactly what it wants to do, and anything else can just go, So it's really interesting. So my boss, my first sales boss, he had that printed up, and he had it on our quote unquote cubicle. It wasn't really a cubicle, but on the wall. And he had it there. It was like, whenever I pick up the phone, he's like, "Oh, honey badger, you're the honey badger. You don't care, like you're in control. You're in charge." And so I noticed that like the calls immediately after like that reminder, of like do this. I'm like, oh duh, yeah, I used to. Why don't I do it anymore? Dude, I've never felt more relaxed. I was just sitting in my chair, felt so comfortable. Like I didn't have a knot in my neck, like I usually do and I do now. But it's so just freeing. You're like, yeah, it's my life. I'm in charge. Especially in sales, like you don't want this. Well, it's my job to convince you to want this, and if you still don't want this, you're a loss. It's kind of the same thing. I mean, when it comes to dating, it's just sales. That's like the appropriate response is that I want you to want this, but if you don't, and I can't convince you, then you're a loss.
Right.
I'm moving on to someone else.
This is actually the way my business partner looks at sales in general and looks at salesmen in general. Mm-hmm. Your job is to give somebody something that they desperately need.
Yeah.
If they don't take the prescription, that's not your job.
Right.
Your job was to prescribe.
Yeah.
If you don't believe that they desperately need your product, you shouldn't be selling it.
Yeah. Yep. And that's good. And I mean, that's why I left my first sales job. because I was like, no, creating Instagram content is not worth $5,000 a month. Plus all the other paying 15,000 for all the other social medias.
I mean, can you make me an Instagram celebrity though? Because like,
No, they didn't.
oh
No. They grew.
I want to be Instagram famous.
Why? That's like the worst kind of famous. Like I would rather be TikTok famous than Instagram famous. Unless my Instagram was for food. Even then, I don't want my food Instagram to be famous.
I'm gonna send you a link later for a video about JP Sears on how to get Instagram famous.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that one. I forget. It's been a while anyway. Yeah. And I have a terrible memory, so I probably don't remember anything in that video anyway. But that's been, so now our brains are warmed up. We're going, we're laughing, we're having a jolly old good time. But now it's time to take a sharp turn. And have not and I say that jokingly and lovingly because Devin has a very interesting topic for us today. And he's agreed to go first because I'm going to close this out with a fun, light little topic. So if you're listening to this, just know we're going to end with this with a very fun note. So hopefully. Honestly, I have no idea where mine is going to go. So you might take it in a whole different direction.
I'll figure out a way to kill the butterfly.
I almost spat all over my keyboard. That was so close.
So I'm gonna rant about this is by far the most political I will ever get on this show. Like, and it's a concern to me because I don't look at it as a political issue. I look at it as a philosophical one.
Okay.
But it's definitely a political issue. So I'm gonna get pretty political and I'm gonna get very opinionated. And if there happens to be a third listener besides you and me, then I might turn them off, and that's okay.
Well, see, I love this because now finally, after the 12th episode, you're giving your opinion, and instead of me constantly just giving my opinions about things.
Yeah.
In general, yeah.
I was like about to argue, and be like, nope, I'm gonna spit facts.
Oh boy, it's gonna be that kind of podcast.
It's that kind of podcast. This is a quote from somebody I already mentioned today, so you can figure out who that was. But it is also a fact that I just called my opinion a fact.
Yeah.
Now it's scientific.
JP Sears, living legend.
Okay. I am gonna use a lot of facts, but then that makes it what do you call it? It makes it normative economics. It's using economic theory and philosophical theory that's well-founded and backed to cater to your opinion. That's normative economics. It's basically like defense of why you believe what you believe on an economic level. Anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing today because I'm going to be talking about a term that I'm pretty sure that nobody's heard of who's listening, unless I'm listening, and it's critical theory.
All right.
So critical theory is an ideology. It's a worldview. It's a like philosophy, and it mirrors a religion in a lot of ways. Most people who practice critical theory and who adhere to critical theory do not know that. They don't know that the actual term of what they're mentioning is critical theory. I'm going to use a definition of critical theory that's given by, I guess it's probably fair to call him like one of the leading combatants of critical theory. Okay. Someone who's trying to find a way to dismantle the ideology. But he defines critical theory as critical theory is an ideology which sees individual identity as inseparable from group identity, and which is committed to the liberation of oppressed groups. It often underlies concepts like social justice, intersectionality, anti-racism, and white privilege.
Okay.
So there's the way that we can reflect and we can look at critical theory as like a belief system is it's actually, if you break it down and you look at it by like the defining features of a religion, critical theory is as much of a religion as Confucianism is. Like It
Okay.
checks off all the same boxes. Both of them just don't talk about an afterlife. So it's almost a religion. But it's the it's the Marxist ideal of like dismantling the oppressors, like destroying the establishment and taking back from the oppressors to give to the oppressed. It's kind of the ideology in a nutshell.
Okay.
And the hard thing, like I wanted to find a clever way to bring this up, but it's not going to be clever. I'm just going to throw it in. Hard thing about like social justice warriors and like activists who are like fighting for the marginalized is the wording that's being used right now most. It's still, if you actually look at intent, it's oppressors versus oppressed.
Yes.
But they're fighting for the marginalized, right? A weird thing, if you really try to pay attention to every like social activist right now, and you try to like weave an umbrella and figure out how they're defining oppressors, it's interesting that it's the marginalized aren't the minorities necessarily. The oppressors are whoever has hegemonic power, and that's the power to invoke change in a populace. Yeah. So basically, like in a proper democracy, who has voting rights has hegemonic power. Right. But if everybody has voting rights, then who has like voting domination? Yeah. Has hegemonic, right? Yep. Who actually invokes change? And it's interesting. Like this is the very first thing that I noticed a year ago when I started looking into this. Is there's a logical contradiction that doesn't allow people to actually adhere to critical theory. Like you can't be a social justice warrior, like philosophically.
Okay. This is okay. Let's see.
If the goal is to fight against those who have hegemonic power, then as soon as you've made any ground whatsoever, you have to attack yourself. Yeah. Like, there's no other logical possibility. If you have invoked change in your culture, then by your definition, you have hegemonic power, you're the oppressor. Yeah. And obviously, like, no one practices it that way, right? No. In practice, it actually becomes... It's not... It's the vein of it. It's the ideal that they think they're fighting for is... a level playing field. In practice, it's actually fighting just to flip it on its head. Right. It's let's make the marginalized the oppressors. Right. And the reality is that the majority of the people who adhere to these belief systems and who think these ways are very sympathetic, very compassionate individuals. Yeah. And honestly, most times, like they're intellectual as well. Like this isn't something that's like you believe it because you're ignorant necessarily. Right. But it is something that I think if people understood where it goes, they wouldn't believe it, or they wouldn't adhere to it. They wouldn't accept it. First, like just recognizing that it's actually fundamentally impossible to have a society that doesn't have marginalized people groups. And that's a very easy concept to prove. If we have 3 kids playing in a playground and they decide that they want to play tag, but one of them wanted to play hide and seek. Well, they decide to play tag, and then they all play tag. That one who wanted to play hide and seek is being marginalized by definition, fundamentally. Yeah. And he's okay with it because he gets to play tag. Or she. Right.
By the way, one of my favorite comic routines of all time is that James Acaster, one of if not my favorite comic in the entire world. So there's a word that men don't use, which is surprising. It's they. So go ahead. It's a joke. It's a tire. I butchered the. I mean, I'm not British and I don't have his.
No. This is like. I had a professor in college who would intentionally use the pronoun she whenever talking about a nameless ideal, like this in the structure I just did of some random person, right? He'd always say she.
Really?
And that, well, it was intentional and it was conscientious on his part. But That's a funny point because "theys" actually would have been the proper word.
Yeah,
But
he's
in that
like,
context-
yeah, and he literally described. He's like, it's a thing that men always do, where they go, yeah, he or she, and then they go, there's a word that you can always just use. It's right there. But yeah, that made me
And
laugh.
the social justice warriors that I'm lashing out at right now would have been okay if I used the word "they." Like,
yeah, they would have preferred it, or maybe not. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
You're probably right. The concern and the reason that I'm concerned about it for many reasons. One reason is it's like it's an unfalsifiable belief system in the way that it's been structured. So
Okay.
if you disagree with anything that a critical theorist says, anything that a social justice warrior says, you are one of two things. Well, you're part of the oppressor group.
Yes, of course.
Right. And again, your identity is inseparable from your group identity. Right. So what you're saying has nothing to do with your own beliefs. It has to do with the beliefs of the group you're in. And no, you can say whatever you want, but your group actually does this, so you don't think that way. Seems to be in practice. So the opposition is immediately hashed out as just being in a group where they couldn't possibly understand by definition.
Right.
And then on the inverse, if you are actually part of a marginalized group that they are fighting for, and you disagree with them, you have been brainwashed by the establishment.
How do you think I know this because I do this because I'm part of a quote unquote marginalized group, and I do not agree with a lot that the group says, and they don't like it at all. So
no, and
am I
that's
part of the
another
group?
funny one is the word choice of equality and acceptance is constantly being used but never being practiced.
Right. Well, the funny thing is that it's accept me. No, I need to make you accept me. I'm like, that's not what you're using words wrong.
Well, and then it's like,
you try
accept me
to-
for my individuality.
And then,
No, you can't be like that.
right.
Like,
It's a funny, like, it just, the problem is, I think the real problem is that it's so fueled in emotion. So I have a friend, okay? I'm gonna never really miss. I love her very dearly. She's one of the sweetest, caring people I know, okay? But she gets very emotional. She would call me crying if she saw a post on Instagram about people not having water or animals being, hurt by environmental disasters, right? She would definitely fall under this category of wanting change, of vehemently wanting change. And it's simply because she's so empathetic that she feels everyone that hurts. And that's a problem. I won't say that's a problem, but that's like the thing is that because it's fueled by that, but because you personally feel hurt and damaged by it, then all of a sudden it becomes personal, and it almost becomes, and especially what I've seen, it almost becomes like a revenge take, which is why we see the whole thing of some extremists not wanting equality, but wanting dominance.
and I want to speak to that too on a level like the practice of like fighting to establish power for yourself or for your group.
Yeah,
that's fundamentally human.
Right. I don't say it's a fundamentally good thing. Well, I mean, I'd
say it's neither good nor bad. It's a thing.
Fine, I'll take that. Well, that's an entirely different conversation. Yeah.
But the probably the biggest difference between most cases where this occurs and when this occurs within critical theory is simply that critical theory is arguing that they're fighting for equality. So it's like, how do you not see the living contradiction that you are? Like, most groups, when they fight for power, admit they are fighting for power.
Right.
But here's the larger concern that I have. Here's the reason that I have a concern in the first place. Because, in general, the idea of a democracy or even a democratic republic is that the best should rise to the top, and eventually that invokes change.
Right.
And At this point, critical theory has become most prevalent enough in our society that it is invoking change, and it will likely continue to invoke change. That is something that we have 100 years of evidence as to what the change will be. I'm gonna throw out some numbers.
Okay.
Between 1900 and 2000, there were 28 million killed under fascist regimes.
Right.
Critical theory is not fascism.
Yeah.
Critical theory is Marxism. Oppressor versus oppressed. Between 1900 and 2000, the ideology of critical theory is responsible for the deaths of 94 million people in China, Soviet Union, North Korea, Afghanistan, Eastern Europe. It's actually responsible for more intentional murders than anything that mankind has ever done in recorded history before that, collectively.
Yeah.
We have never been so violent as we are if we adhere to a critical theory.
Yeah.
Towards our own people.
And I find it funny because you're saying critical theory, and it just sounds like you're talking about a reasonable way to think. Like that's what throws me, right? It's critical theory. You're like that just sounds like, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yeah, critical theory. Give me some of that. On its face, I think it needed to be rebranded as a. I don't know. I guess it is being rebranded today with certain parties, but.
Well, I mean, nobody knows that term by that term unless they're in a university.
Yeah.
But
Is that political science, or is it philosophy?
probably poli-sci.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's obvious that the term was like the name for the term was named by somebody who adheres to it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's self-evident in the name.
Yeah.
But it's the and that's also why you'll see the biggest advocates against it. They don't call it critical theory. They won't call it that term either. Usually, they probably would in an educational setting, but not in an open forum, not in a place that's public. So like the biggest one that I know of is Jordan Peterson is advocately fighting against critical theory.
Yeah.
He's probably the biggest person in media right now fighting against critical theory. And it's bizarre the way that like critical theorists, social justice warriors were absolutely demonize him for concepts that they themselves can be found agreeing with. Like it is so bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the funny thing is that if you use their same ideology but for something else, like if you use the same and I guess it's not a perfect comparison, but it's funny to me is like I guess what it is that if let's say you mimic, and I've seen, I mean, mostly people who are just doing it for a video and a laugh, but if you do the same, if you copy their language, if you copy their actions, of let's say let's just take, I don't know, third wave feminists are an easy target because I feel like they're becoming more and more of just a fringe group because they're getting more and more unreasonable. Yeah, but what was that? I forget what I was watching, but it was basically like they copied their language. They just started swapping out, different words, and they copied and they did the exact same thing they did, and then they just watched how much they hated it. It's like, well, but I believe in this just as much as you believe in that. You say you have people and stories and evidence backing you. Well, so do I. What's what's the difference between you and I? In fact, I have, maybe in this case, I may have stronger evidence in that. I remember the one that I've never seen so much anger at when someone will say, I was watching this interview, and she was a third wave feminist. She was saying, women make less than men, and 30 cents. I forget what they're saying nowadays. 34 cents. And then the guy responded,
it's not accurate.
Well, I know that, but then the guy responded saying, okay, well, let's just say that's true. 9 out of 10 deaths on the workplace are men. And it's kind of like, is that response. And I've never like that in and of itself. It's just a small thing, and it shouldn't make me laugh because it's really sad. I think that's probably just a coping mechanism. But I've never seen so much like anger between both of them, going back and forth. And I was like, wow, this is something I don't want to be part of. That's why I don't get into any kind of
that's actually
aggressive politics, because I don't care enough.
Like there are some fundamental ideologies that are highly dangerous. That if people groups accept them, they like the history is well documented that they are highly dangerous.
Right.
A very big one is equality of outcome.
Yeah. Yep.
So here's the concern. Let's say that there's a people group that, let's keep it super simple. Let's say that there's a people group that's 54% male and 46% female.
Right.
Like this people group, for whatever reason, has male, like slightly more men.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that we're going to talk about is male versus females. And we want equality of outcome for men and women. Mm-hmm. That's the argument that we would want in the school system. We would want the AP classes to be 50% female and 50% male because we want equality of outcome.
Yeah.
We obviously can't have that for everything because there's more men. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, if you're looking in the job field, for example, the same people group that we're talking about, that's more men than women, right? Well, we want just the same. We want 50% male and 50% female engineers. We want 50% male, 50% female healthcare workers.
Right.
If you want to give me free choice, you can't have equality of outcome because men and women are sociologically different enough that they're going to have preferences to different jobs.
Yep.
Right? So equality of outcome as an ideal doesn't function. It doesn't make any sense. But it's literally, I had to go through a training 2 days ago that was for implicit bias for a school system that I work with.
Yeah.
Implicit bias is a very legitimate thing, and if it's framed appropriately, I have no issue with the teaching. It's just very rarely framed appropriately.
Yes.
But they mentioned in the training that the goal is equality of outcome.
Wait, they said that?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're killing America.
I had no idea they're at. Wow.
Oh no, the things that I'm talking about right now are first and foremost in our school systems. Like,
yeah, I mean, I know it's in there. I didn't realize it was like actively being taught to teachers and things. Like I knew there was teachers.
Like, there's a reason that people like Jordan Peterson will say that university does more harm than good.
Yeah.
And the people that I know who've studied this the most deeply, they refer to like college as re-education camps.
Yeah. Because
they are teaching critical theory. That is what they are doing fundamentally now. Regardless of what you go to school to learn, you're learning critical theory.
Dude, I had I've told you this. My econ professor, half of our lessons was just her making political statements about why this is better, and like why, and obviously I would classify her as one of the extremists on the left. Definitely. And also I had another professor who, funny enough, was an extremist on the right. And I was like, wow, that's rare. That's rare. Actually, I had two. No, I had two.
Luke, go to a university, not a community college.
No, you're right. You're right.
I've been to both.
Yeah, you're right.
Like community colleges, and I think a lot of it is just not living on campus.
Yeah.
You don't see anything close to how bad it is as a re-education camp for critical theory.
Yeah.
Like that's what they do. My girlfriend lives in college right now, and we've been combating it for 3 years so far.
Yeah.
But the school systems, like teachers are being trained, and it's all under the guise of equity training. Mm-hmm. Equity sounds nice. Equity is a vague term.
Yeah.
In practice, it almost always actually means equity of outcome, and equity of outcome is dangerous.
Yep. I know exactly what I'm making. I'm gonna add an image to our show notes for this, and it's a really good image of like equity, equality, and free choice. And And it's just here. Let me see if I can find it.
Equity, equality, and Marxism.
Yeah,
Oh,
Here we
I
go.
know what image you're talking about.
where they're standing on the boxes looking over a fence.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course people took it and they say capitalism, whatever.
That's
Yeah.
just yeah. So it's a terrifying notion. I think the biggest issue we have is that in the last 100 years, mankind did a really good job globally of eradicating every system that adheres to this philosophy.
Yeah.
And now we don't have one to point to
Yep.
to say, look how stupid this is.
Well,
Look how dangerous
and then you get
this
kids
is.
who've never experienced. I mean, kids. And when I say kids, I mean people my age,
Right.
and younger. It's now cool. Like I've seen this, and I don't know if you're aware of this. I mean, you're in the school system. Your headphones are broken, dude. I don't know if Devin can hear me. Oh, he needs to plug them in. Really? You need to plug in your. You look ridiculous. You need to plug in your headphones while they're wired.
Yeah, they don't charge when they're wired. They're wireless headphones, but there's no
power.
internal they didn't come with like a Bluetooth drive.
Right.
And my computer doesn't have anything internal. So they have to be wired to the computer to work, but they're wireless for my phone.
Right.
So they're wireless, but this just doesn't dual as a charger. It's just a
That's weird.
Yeah.
Never. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. What was I? Oh, what was I gonna say? I don't know. Your two wires coming out of your head.
I
Crashed
think
my
I
thought
look like
process.
a baller.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure, like, because you're in the school system if you see this, but like I'll see this through online looking at places where teenagers are. Is that it's kind of cool to be communist. It's kind of like a hip thing. And I know being in even in my poli-sci class, there was a guy writing for local government. He's like, guys, socialism isn't that bad. No one's just done it right yet. And I'm like, the fact that no one's done it right in all of human history, isn't that like just a little concerning to you?
Well, it's a newer system, so there's an argument to be made.
Yeah, I guess so. But
there's a distinction between socialism and communism.
of course, yeah. Of course. But it was this guy specifically who was running for government in my district, and I was like, I don't know.
So, this is generally I don't know how I feel about the statement overall, but it makes me laugh, so I'm gonna say it.
Okay.
When people say that like Marxism just hasn't been done right, what they're really saying is I would be a good Marxist leader.
Yeah.
Which is not understanding how humans work.
Right. And it's a height of hubris too.
Right.
I wouldn't be a good Marxist leader.
Here's another one. Like on top of the fact that every time it's been practiced, it's led to like legalized mass murder.
Yeah.
In addition to that, every time it's been practiced, it's led to mass famine. Mm-hmm. It's led to mass malnutrition in a populace.
Yeah.
It's not just dangerous because it allows people the power to control what they want to see in their own people group, which is where the mass murder comes from. Mm-hmm. But it's also dangerous in that it fundamentally does not work on an economic level.
Yeah.
There is no way to sustain an entity with enough funds to make it work. Mm-hmm. And that's a proven economic fact. That's not theory. That's not just history.
Yeah.
It's what the math says and what history says.
Yeah. And there's someone who would know that. It'd be you. So, if there's someone on this podcast between the two of us who'd actually know that it's mathematically and scientifically proven.
The really easy thing to do is this is economically, this is the idea of socialism.
Uh-huh.
Okay, economically, is you have $1 million, and I don't have any money at all. If I take $1 from you, you won't notice.
Yeah.
But if I give $1 to me, I can eat.
Yeah.
So, taking the money from the rich that they won't notice to give it to the poor that they desperately need will raise overall well-being in the nation.
Right.
That's the ideology. Mm-hmm. And fundamentally, it makes sense.
Yeah. But
where it breaks down is it costs more than $1 to move that dollar.
yeah.
So the system that's constantly moving that money around and equalizing that money is working at a deficit.
Yeah. Well, you think that if, let's say, because I mean, we talked about this before. If wait, how was it you? Did I talk to you about having just a giant computer running the entire nation?
No.
I haven't.
No.
Okay, it was someone else then.
Sounds fun.
Right? It'd be fun. But like the idea is that you get the best people in the world who understand political science, who understand computer, right, and AI, and they basically they build this program that can look at all the data in the world and in the nation and the world, and then formulate different policies and stuff to benefit the most people. Obviously that's such an idealistic viewpoint of it, and there's no way it would work right away because I know enough about programming to know that.
No, it's literally going to be, when we're done, the very first time we render, there's not going to be a single error in the code. It's going to...
Yeah, there's definitely no... Oh, dude, that trigger.
We did not forget a colon.
Staying up till 3 a.m. trying to get the stupid C program to work. So that was the idea, right? But theoretically, if that happened, then all of a sudden, the system itself that's moving the money would just be automated. There wouldn't be. I mean, you'd have to pay for electricity.
So, and
of course you have to pay to build it. But
this is effectively like the premise of like iRobot, right? When a supercomputer is designed to see what works best to like promote humanity, their conclusion is we must enslave them. Right. Like we can't let them have free will.
That's iRobot?
That's iRobot.
I thought the robots just turned rogue.
Well, the fact is the supercomputer robot is following the 3 laws of robotics to a T.
Oh, is that?
So it's the realization, and now because it's connected to all the other robots, it has the ability. Right. But it's to do the best. So what are Cunningham's 3 laws of robotics?
First is that you shall do no harm to humans. You shall not You shall not have inaction when you could benefit humans, or you cannot have an action that indirectly hurts a human. What? I used to know them. Robotics. Here we go, by Isaac Asimov. And I read. Oh, wait. Are you talking about iRobot the movie or the book?
The robot with Will Smith.
Oh, okay. The first thing that pops up is saying why Asimov's 3 laws of robotics are unethical.
Okay. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm.
Right, exactly. There you go.
Second is a robot must obey orders given it by human beings except where such orders conflict with the first law.
Right. Yep.
Third is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law.
Exactly.
So, where these laws came into play in iRobot was, look, BJ Pants. Where these came in iRobot was the realization that as long as humans are allowed to do whatever they want, they will cause harm. And then in accepting that realization, a robot may not, through inaction, allow a human to come to harm. That's first law. So I have to act.
Yeah.
They must obey every order given by a human unless it inflicts on the first law. And now, because you're telling me what to do, and what you're telling me to do is stopping me from stopping you from doing what you want, and stopping you from doing what you want is keeping you safe, I can now reject your orders. And third, they won't allow themselves to come to harm unless it's required to adhere to the first or second law. Yeah. So I wouldn't fight you on this, except it's for your own good.
Right. Exactly.
So this is where the robots from the 3 laws of robotics ended up just trying to enslave mankind.
Right. I mean, that's how it always ends, right? Which is funny. I mean, and this is something that makes me laugh. I'm like, if our view of an intelligent AI who's whose goal is to protect humanity, if our imagination is constantly just making them either enslave humanity or kill all of humans because humans are like the worst, what does that tell us about ourselves?
That's true,
right?
But also, I mean, there's the idea that anything that's actually intelligent enough will try to be dominant.
Yeah.
And that's I thought iRobot was funner than it was funner than 2001: A Space Odyssey or Terminator.
I could never finish 2001: Space Odyssey. I got 15 minutes in. I'm like, no, why am I? I'm like, I don't need to. No one's making me do this.
It's just funner than so many of the other premises or this other movies that do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it was a literal invokement of the 3 laws of robotics.
Exactly.
So it was not saying that they're going to destroy us because they're smart enough. It's saying that they're following their programming.
Yeah.
We told them to do this. We just didn't realize that's what we said.
Yeah.
Which programmers know all the time. A computer will do exactly what you tell it to do.
Yep. But
so whatever it's doing, you said to do that.
Yeah. Except you're like, no, I didn't mean that. Well, if you didn't mean it, why did you code it that way?
Exactly.
It's like, well, cause I'm a human. I'm trying to build basically a person from code.
Well, that's the other one too. Is that's a great example of something I tell people all the time. Like programming, mathematics, logic. It's perfectly logical.
Yeah.
We aren't.
Yeah, exactly. and it's infallible, but we aren't. Mm-hmm. Which leads to all the problems, dude. I'm so glad. I was like, yeah, I could go into a coding field because my brother went into it. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's easy. I could do it. I can't do it. My brain isn't. It's just not wired for that.
I'm not willing to.
It's not worth the pain.
I think I probably could, but like I said in my Secrets Uncovered, I'm really just focused on doing things I enjoy.
Right. Yeah. What are one of those things that you enjoy?
One of the things I enjoy?
Yeah. Like, what do you like doing?
I thoroughly enjoy building marketing systems if I don't have to talk to people about it. I thoroughly enjoy video editing if I don't have to do it too much. So if I just cap that, it's fun. I thoroughly enjoy talking about philosophy and theology. Mm-hmm. If I could have the world I wanted, I'd get paid an exuberant amount of money to talk to people about God all day. But I extremely I enjoy martial arts. It doesn't matter what I enjoy. I've realized that if I enjoy it, I will seek a way to teach it to others.
Yeah.
So I'm a default educator.
Yep. Yeah. Same way.
So yeah, that's probably the biggest things I enjoy the most. Actually.
Cool.
I enjoy high level thought conversations. I enjoy teaching. Enjoy martial arts.
Yeah.
I like building things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the show is let's talk about some fun stuff that we could never understand, but it's very entertaining.
I mean, yeah, at least for us. It is very entertaining.
I mean, to the entire show's audience, it's entertaining. Mm-hmm. You and me.
It took me a second. Yeah, so I mean, are you confident saying that we've overthought this?
Yeah, we can move on.
Okay.
I'll just get more passionate and more upset, so we can move on.
Actually, I'm quite proud of how restrained you were. I don't even know if the word restrained is right.
Well, we talked about this a little bit yesterday.
You did, so you got out. And you got out a little bit of that.
It's just hard to be just as passionate about saying the same things to you again.
Which is a strategy, I guess. Usually that's the death of talk radio, is saying the same things over, is saying things to the host and then saying the same things again. In our case, it worked because
I kind of wanted to yell at people. If you're a social justice warrior listening to us, please don't. Please don't be a social justice warrior, and please do not listen to the show. Please recognize the harm you're doing and the fact that your ideology will kill America.
Don't you want them to listen to us though? So
if they change their ideology, yes. I don't want to be associated with them. I don't want to be associated with the death of humanity.
Okay, we've overthought this. I'm just imagining like our biggest following is just the most radical people for some reason.
It's like, I don't know, the first 11 episodes were really good, and then
that would write a book about that. That's what I would do. That's so my topic's a little more lighthearted, but could potentially get very dark very fast. And I'm glad I kept my secrets uncovered for this because it's gonna work really well. My
lighthearted but dark. Luke Maxwell.
That's me. I think, did you tell me that the other day, or I think it was someone else that told me that the other day. Basically, I forget the exact words I used, but that's basically the context was that. Yep, that's me. So, Devin, I have a question for you.
Luke, I have a response.
Can you guess what my introduction to the idea of time travel was?
42. That's the answer to the most important question.
Yep. Funny.
I would guess Doctor Who.
I knew you would say that, and you're wrong.
I'm glad I'm wrong. I enjoy Doctor Who. That's not my point, but
yeah. Well, I haven't watched the latest seasons. It just kind of got. I don't know. I just don't care as much anymore. I feel like that was a past Luke that really loved it, and I want to keep it that way. But no, it was actually the book. It was actually a book. Let's see if that narrows it down.
I mean,
a famous book.
I don't read.
It's The Time
fiction.
Machine by H.G. Wells.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so fun little fact about my life. I read that book, freaked me out because it's kind of scary. And then I read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as well after that. And those are like the two, what I thought were like the adult books that I was reading as a kid. I was pretty young. I found out like a decade later, looking back to those books, they were both abridged. And I was so mad. I'm like, are you kidding me? I didn't actually get the full story. And so I tried reading the full story again at that time. I'm like, no, I don't care enough. I ended up reading the full story of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and it doesn't live up to the magic as I remember it being, as a kid reading like this story. I loved that book so much as a kid. It was like I was honestly like, I will say that as a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is probably my favorite story ever. Just because it was a very, very special place for me growing up. Reading that, and it just opened my mind creatively.
Creatively. That's a show note.
No. Curse my tongue.
So if you guys, this is funny. I'm gonna have to. If you go and read the show notes for episode 6, I think it's probably the clearest, makes it most obvious that I must be the one who writes the show notes, because I try to be impartial to a point.
No, you don't.
And then okay. Let me speak. Like, I try to be impartial to a point in that I try to find sentiments that will, like, one-liners that'll paint us both in a negative light. Where I fail more often is like recognizing the really good things that Luke says that should be like positive light. Right. So like most of the show notes, if you read through them, you'll get that we're both stupid, but that Devin also says some good things sometimes.
Devin, that's a good.
In episode 6, it's more like Luke's really lucky that he has Devin helping him through this, because it was so one-sided.
That episode, like no, that wasn't the episode.
Not the episode, the show notes.
Yeah, I will say though that the episode where I talk about where we talk about what's it called? Quandaries, things impossible, the paradoxes. That part definitely was you being like, "It's okay, Luke. They're there. I'll handle
And
this."
that'll definitely be in the show
Oh
notes.
no! What am I doing? I'm the instrument of my own demise.
So I'm gonna try in the future to like notice the good things you say more often in the show notes.
I don't care. I couldn't care less. Honestly, I think it's hilarious. But no, so the Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And so the idea, right, is that it's like the classic time travel story. Goes back in time. He goes forward in time. Cool.
Messes up the world.
As far as I know, he doesn't actually change the future at all because he really doesn't really do anything. He just has adventures. Honestly, I can't remember the plot very well, just because that book actually scared me so bad as a kid that I think I blocked part of it out of my memory. So that was my introduction to time travel, and I was like, wow, this is cool. This is really interesting. Then I'm pretty sure there was things in between this. I just don't remember them. I'm pretty sure there was books that I read that had time travel in them because I was reading probably like 5 books a day as a kid, all the way up to my teenage years. Through my teenage years, I'll say.
So you've probably read more books than Tony Robbins.
Well, the problem is I read the same books over and over again because I don't remember them. Because I kind of speed read. I don't have a high comprehension rate when I read. So
speed reading raises the comprehension rate if you do it right. You should look.
Well, no, I don't do it right. I was never trained. When I say speed reading, I mean I just kind of breeze through. By the way, you look like an angel right now. You're so much light. There's so much light on you right now. You look like you're ascending to heaven. But my introduction was Doctor Who, and kind of what I wanted to talk about was different theories of time travel. Which one makes the most sense and which seems the most reasonable. Right? Now, we're going to throw Doctor Who right out the window because basically time is completely malleable and things change all the time, but for some reason there's fixed points in time.
Well, time is timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That was actually going to be my intro for the episode today was a point
really?
about that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Where we are this week, I wanted to do something to the effect of like we're stuck in some tiny wimey widdly wobbly stuff.
That would have
with
been
our resident pop culture reference out of the way. Let's get serious.
That's funny because you didn't know I was doing this. At least you shouldn't, because the notes, my file for this with my notes is titled Luke's Super Secret Notes for the next podcast episode. If you're reading this, you've already gone too far.
Is that open to me?
Yeah, you can.
That's awesome.
I'll see if you open it. I just opened it. You just opened it. You've gone too far.
So
you've gone too far. Make that.
It's probably the most fun I've had live on this show so far.
Thanks. There we go. There. Oh, you closed out of it. I just put "you've gone too far" in 96 point. The thing about Doctor Who is that it's fun.
It's right after the word theory.
Yeah, theory.
This is a theory that you have gone too far. We will try to prove that.
I was hoping. I thought, I was like, yeah, it's a very low likelihood that you'll actually see that there's a new file in there, but
I wouldn't have,
just in case. So Doctor Who's what got me thinking about time travel, because it's like they say, they kind of cop out, and if the plot needs it, then they have a fixed point in time. But otherwise, it's incoherent, it's inconsistent. For some reason, like Britain never actually changes, even though, because that's like the main place that they live. There's dimension hopping.
It's always an interesting one. Doctor Who is not a human.
Right.
Go anywhere in time in all of reality, and has a fixation for 1990s Britain.
Right, which is hilarious. Well, 2000s Britain. Well, it depends on which Doctor. I'm talking about the new series. I tried watching the old series on a bootleg website, then the website ended up getting shut down.
There's I don't remember what it was on. One of those flashback channels had the original Doctor Who's on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the original Doctor Who's were lost in a fire. A fire burned down and burned the tapes. So we've lost. I forget, but it's like a huge chunk of like the middle. as far as I know, was completely lost. So like no one can ever see it again, as far as my knowledge goes, or at least they haven't figured it out yet. At the time, 3 years ago or so, that I was looking at it.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know, right?
It
was
automatically
really
makes it better.
Right? Exactly. Like, imagine if you could see it. Like, yeah. So that was kind of my introduction and started me thinking about time travel. And obviously, so Doctor Who, so the flaws I see in this kind of method is, one, the idea of fixed points in time. That time itself, like the universe itself, ordains that certain points are important. It's kind of like why, they're important to you. That's why, like someone dying, like it's important to you. So of course it's a fixed point in time. So that's the idea.
I didn't watch Doctor Who enough, but my interpretation, this isn't what I got from what the show said. It's what I got from how the show acted.
Okay.
It was like, by watching what they did, it seemed like having been here now intentionally makes this a fixed point.
No. So that's different. So they also have that rule to where you can't go back in time and talk to yourself for whatever reason. It causes a rift, and then you can't, if you touch yourself, and then that causes these demons to pop through space time to eat you, so to right the wrong. I think it was like the 4th episode of the 1st season where that happened, or the 3rd episode or something like that. She goes back to see her dad, and then she sees baby her. These, the basically the bacteria of time space doesn't like it and starts to try to get rid of them to fix that. Because anyway, that's it.
No, that's not what I was getting at. I was getting at, regardless of because like I said, it's not said by the show. It's like meta. How I see the show acting is wherever I've been, like as the Doctor, wherever I've been, having been there made it a fixed point. Because he references it later as an event in history. So it's not something that like he ever declares, but it seems to be in practice what's happening. And I didn't watch enough for the show.
Yeah,
to know
no.
if that's
So the idea,
consistent.
the big point, so where fixed points come into play, which is hilarious. So the funny, so I'm gonna get into this because we do. Because whatever. Because I love talking about Doctor Who. My favorite, the most laughable, my favorite laughable point in the entire series is, right, there's the whole point of the entire season. I think it's season 7 or 8, is that he's going to die, and he's going to be killed. And he said it's a fixed point in time, and it's going to happen. And if I don't let it happen, all of time space will collapse, right? So they avoid it. He doesn't die. And then time freezes, right? But by the idea of time freezing means nothing, because all that means is that clock stopped. I was like, what? That's not what do you think time is? So anyway, so that's like the part that I was just laughing the most, is seeing like, oh, the clock started ticking again. Time is moving forward. It's funny. So and then of course they subvert the whole thing by pretending to kill him, and of course pretending to kill him like tricks time space into thinking he's actually dead.
Tricks reality.
Right? It's it's so dumb. Like that's like it serves for great cinema, because the entire point of the entire of season or series, I should say, series 7 is building up to that point. It's really cool how it all comes together, like cowboy style. But yeah, so that's something. So that's definitely not something I adhere to. The next point, which is interesting to me, is the idea of like pop culture, like what's it called? The famous one. Oh no! Why did I do this? I blanked. Devin.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Thank you. Never seen Back to the Future. Fun fact. Just because I don't care about movies that culture tells me that I need to watch that was famous at one time.
Have you never watched Pulp Fiction either?
I haven't, but it's on my list. I have a classics movies list, and I'm working my way through.
I don't care what they say. I have a classics movie list.
Well, no, I mean things that are things that I think are not only well regarded, but also I know enough about the idea of the movie to make it really interesting to me. Pulp Fiction just seems like a movie that is widely regarded as a good movie. And so I want to see if all it's about. Although, fun fact, I watched Minority Report, which will come in. That's foreshadowing, everybody. And that was a painfully average movie. And I don't get why everyone likes it. I was really disappointed. I thought I would love it. It has everything I love, but it doesn't. So pop culture, right? The idea that you can kind of erase yourself, preventing yourself from being bored. This throws out a couple of notions, right? One, that time is malleable. So the actions that you do in the past affect the future, which makes sense because the actions we do right now affect the future, right? So that you can see that as kind of making sense if you're looking at. Wait, I see that look on your face. It kind of makes sense, but it falls under kind of like the protagonist fallacy of like everything is important from my eyes, and because I'm doing this, then it's important. Whereas if any other person time travels like before me, what they did isn't important, right? I think that's like we talked about earlier. That's the biggest proof of time travel that time travel won't exist is because we haven't seen utter chaos. Like it would be. I would only see it as time falling apart because you have so many people time jumping, changing things, which then change that future. I personally don't see it working.
It's what is it? Rick and Morty did an episode on that.
Yeah, they did.
And it was so good because like the show in its entire run completely avoids time travel and makes references to it.
Yep.
Like,
and they say time travel is stupid. Yeah.
Rick talks about how he won't deal with time travel. There's an episode where at the end of the episode he goes and gets pizza for them. Yeah. And he's like, oh, by the way, this was in a different dimension. I don't do time travel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then on the episode where someone else does time travel and it's absolute chaos the way you described. Yeah. He's like, this is why you don't do time travel.
Yep. And then the thing is though, you wouldn't remember. I don't know. So, interesting enough, and this is a comparison to my next example. In things like Back to the Future, right, you can erase yourself. What I always found interesting about that is that brings to notion that your past self and your future self are inextricably help me out, are tied together. This would mean that you would need something crossing boundaries of time that links your past self and future self. So that way, if something affects your future self, your past self is also affected.
Did you mean inexplicable?
Inexplicable. Thank you.
Okay, so inexplicably?
Yeah.
Huh.
I have no idea.
I was like, I don't know what word you want.
I moved on, Devin. I don't remember what I was saying.
Okay. Inexplicable means like unable to be explained. Is that what you meant?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Intrinsic? No, I don't know, dude.
Okay. Proceed.
So this brought me into another line of thinking. Have you read the Ender's Game series?
No.
Okay. Have you read the first one?
No.
Right.
Ask me if I've read fiction. No.
So Ender's Game is one of my favorite series of all time. It starts off as like something that you think like, oh, it's kids fighting. And then it gets into the deepest philosophical discussions you'll ever see. Like the rest of the books are entirely philosophy. And people talking about worldviews and about right and wrong and about actions and consequences. It's a 180 turn that I've never seen in any other series. And there's so many books of them too.
They're like, "Ha, we tricked you."
Right? Exactly. He basically tricked people into reading philosophy, which is why I think you'd enjoy it. But there's something, and spoilers for a like 40-year-old book or whatever, however old it is that there's this. They discover they're trying to find out instantaneous travel, right? And they're trying to discover instantaneous travel.
Instant transmission.
And well, right. So they have
Goku style.
Ask me if I watch anime, like one or two.
You've heard of Goku.
I know. I was just trying to clap back. And they discover these things called phyliotes, right? Or it's a phyliotic web. And what it is, it's a tangent of the idea of quantum entanglement, which we've talked about before, right? So the idea of quantum entanglement is that you can make quantum matter entangled to the point of if you affect one, it affects the other over a very large distance almost instantaneously, right? That's as far as I'm versed in that. There's it's a lot more complicated. I tried to learn more about it, and a lot of it flew over my head just because I'm not in physics, much less quantum physics. That's a whole nother
Literally,
field.
the world's leading experts don't understand
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
And that's what the entire field's doing right now. Is saying these are some wacky stuff that we see that we don't get,
Right.
and it's cool.
Yeah. Right. So the idea is but the idea is though that in his universe is that people become entangled. So let's say if you affect if you, let's say like, oh, I don't know, you get insomnia one night, all of a sudden I get insomnia too that night, right? Without any
Real life example,
right? Without any communication beforehand about that. Is that the next day, right? And obviously we're cherry picking. Like that's an example of counting the wins and not counting the losses.
Yeah, we could be psychics.
Right, we could be.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of friends that strongly believe that they're entangled and that if someone is feeling sick, they can immediately sense it, and they feel sick as well. I don't believe them, but and they're not gonna listen to this. So
It's like twin theory almost.
yeah, which also I don't believe. So in order for you to erase yourself, there has to be something like quantum entanglement of your past and future self, which I found really interesting that no one has really gone in, at least what I'm seeing, no one has explored when it comes to time travel and this notion of time travel, of being able to get rid of yourself, which then creates a paradox because then who went back in time in the first place to erase yourself?
So the real issue that I see with everything that's like been presented in pop culture as embodiment of time travel is there are logical contradictions to every possibility of time travel.
Yep.
So if you don't ignore those, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Like, and if you do, and like, so we've talked about time travel paradoxes on the show.
Yeah.
The reality is, without an agent of time travel, we don't know if those theories hold.
Right.
So when you invoke that you have the ability to time travel, you just like, you can also invoke that those paradoxes aren't things.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, and I should also mention is that like I would say the two main views of time. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but one, the main, I think the most popular is that time is a line, and we're going down the line right now at this moment,
theory.
right? And then the other one is where time is stacked, moments on top of each other, and every moment is happening simultaneously, and we're simply perceiving time moving forward because of our nature in respect to time. When it comes to the stacking, I think that's where Doctor Who tends to lean, simply because of the way they jump between time. Is that time is always happening, all happening at once, so that makes it possible to jump from moment to moment. But my most interesting, so I'll say, something, and so this is like pop culture, Doctor Who, right? And this is the time machine, right? But then I read a book. Another book by Orson Scott Card, who wrote Ender's Game. My favorite science fiction writer of all time. He wrote a book called Past Watch, and it's about time travel. About it's a typical time travel story in that where our current society is being ruined. We're running out of food, we're running out of water. Our entire Earth is slowly, just because of the decisions we made thousands of years ago, we're now reaping the benefits from. And so basically he goes back in time to talk to, of all people, Christopher Columbus, because they identified, using their math and their programs, they identified that point, that Christopher Columbus's quote unquote conquest. It was a slightly politically charged book, and I was like, well, I don't know, but it's they were trying to prevent that, and they thought if we did this, then all signs should point that we'll survive, and then when we get back home, our entire community will be alive and well.
It's kind of like the inverse of like the Terminator premise.
Right.
We just need to kill this one guy and we will win in the future.
Exactly. Right? But the interesting thing about this book, other than that it's pretty well written, it's a really interesting story, and they bring real life characters in here, so you get to see like it's like historical fiction meets science fiction meets time. It's really, I really enjoyed the book. But the idea is that you're physically you when it comes to time travel, you physically travel to the past. So no matter what, there's no like the future affects you. Like everything you have, like there's no like all of a sudden you'll like be missing something in your pocket because in the future you changed something and you didn't do that. Is that no, you travel to this location and now you're at this location. And I really like that. I'm like, that makes a lot more sense. Because then you don't have to expand your mind and think about, quantum entanglement across time and space. It's like, no, we found a way to put my matter, all my cells, and we found a way to transport it through, through space and time to this location. And now I'm here. Right? So I've never seen that anywhere else, which really, which was really cool to me. And I personally, out of those three, I mean, that's the one out of most theories of time travel, that's the one I tend to look at. But I think if time travel was real, I think the necessity, if we were able to actually do time travel, the necessary component would be the idea of the multiverse. And time travel would be simply breaking through the barriers of the universe into another universe that's operating at the time that we want to enter.
So, I'm going to... I don't know if this... I'm going to present my favorite version of time travel that I've seen.
Okay.
It's a character. It's a superhero of sorts. Got his debut in the TV show Ben 10.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Paradox.
I remember nothing from that show.
So Paradox is a scientist who, because of some experiment that was happening, there was an explosion, and the explosion knocked him outside of reality. So he basically woke up in a white void. Mm-hmm. It was just out of our reality.
Right.
And the way that he'll describe it is, it's like there's nothing to do but think. And there's no time, so I can't tell you how long I was there. But I can tell you that I still perceive time because it's the way that my biology was built.
Right.
And so it felt like millennia. And you'd say, well, what would you do in this time? Well, wouldn't you go mad? And you're right, I did. But eventually I got bored of that too.
That's
and
deep
I started
for a kid's
learning.
show. I don't remember any of this.
It's like, and then I started learning and discovering and thinking. And who knows how much time this actually took him. But if you have infinite time to think about how things work.
Right.
The premise was he learned how to get home.
Wow. And
in learning how to get home, he's called Paradox.
Right.
He teleports and time travels. That's his power. Mm-hmm. And he can take other people wherever he wants as well. Mm-hmm. When he's introduced in Big 10, the character Kevin asks him, Ben asks, "Where's your time machine?" Yeah. And Kevin says he doesn't have a time machine. He has a map. And Farrah's like, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't need anything to time travel except to understand how it works.
Yeah.
Well, how does it work? I couldn't explain that to you. You won't live long enough.
Yeah. Yep. I mean,
and I really like that perception that if time travel, this is why I like it. Mm-hmm. It's a version of time travel that explains why everybody can't do it and why we don't know about it.
Right.
Because one individual with one constant thought is able to do it, and you'd have to experience what he experienced to do it as well.
Right.
And he doesn't want everyone to know that time travel is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. But I will say this. I mean, we're closing in. So my thoughts in regards to time travel, like I said, foreshadowing with Minority Reports, is I wanted to bring the question to you. Is that if let's say we spent 100 years. This is an actual, we're actually doing thought experiments again on this show. Let's say we had 100 years And over these 100 years, we built and tested an AI, a program that predicts crime. Right? And over those 100 years, we got to the point where it's 99.9% accurate, right? It's almost like there's been a few outliers during this entire time that were later proven to be not guilty. Or that, for some reason we were able to see that they weren't, right? Would it be moral to use that machine and convict before action?
I mean, it's a question that's similar to one that we've discussed in the past of with Dean, when Dean was on the show. Is if the machine predicts pain.
Right. And you don't.
Right. And so it's a very similar question. I guess I kind of have like two different opinions about it, but one is like, regardless of whether or not it's moral, do we think society would use it? Like, would we accept it as a society?
I mean, I think people would accept it until the machine chose them.
Right.
Because we all think of ourselves above. We're like, oh no, that's not for us. That's for others.
Well, and then if you've tried to follow the like X-Men universe, which is not a
great
valiant exercise, but there is one of the movies deals with time travel because the Sentinels that were meant to kill mutants learned that everybody has mutant genes and killed everybody.
Oh, right? That's right.
That's
forgot about that.
And so, I mean, first off, like, I would really want to know what the machine deems as criminal. Let's take
Minority Report. Minority Report, it's only murder.
Okay. So the way that I would want to see the machine used is similar to the way that a lie detector test is used.
Right.
Except lie detector tests are not admissible in court, so they're only used to 50, convict. 50. Well, that's why they're not admissible in court.
Yeah.
So they're only used to convict. But the reason that the example I use is they're a piece of technology that is used to build a case, but they don't convict.
See, and here's the problem though, is that there is no case. Like you could say, so let's say you could take premeditated. Like that would be something like, so for example, so just for like Minority Report is that have you watched it?
No.
Okay. So there's 3 psychics basically, and they predict, and they're able to sense, like collectively they're able to sense murders before they happen. Because of that, premeditated murder went down. So all of a sudden, so it became almost impossible to actually predict someone to be that's going to be murdered. My huge flaw with that movie, which is not a factor here, but I just wanted to bring up, is that at the end of the movie, spoilers for an old movie, they discontinued the program and they released all of the people that were ever convicted by this program. The problem is, the first 10 minutes of the movie is showing us a guy that's about to stab his wife. And he has the knife at her throat, and they tackle him and they wrestle him away, right? And they get him, beforehand. And then I'm like, wait, he got released? He's attempted murder at the least. So
the one that has evidence above the
right. It's like
psychics.
Like any person could convict this guy. So that was one thing that bugged me about the movie. That's not what I'm talking about, really. So about you're walking down the street, cops pull up, they arrest you, and they say you're about to commit a murder. And we have this thing that's been wrong a couple times out of like 100 years.
So, well, first and foremost, like I feel like my defense in that case, if cop literally pulls up because I'm walking down the street and is like, you're about to commit a murder, be like, I'll bet if you watch it was probably justified. Like no joke, like if I'm about to commit a murder, it's because the person's doing something that's a great evil. Like, so it's like, why don't you come with me? Because you're the person who's supposed to stop it. Like, like the idea that someone's about to kill somebody isn't sufficient to say that they did anything wrong.
Right. I'm saying though, it's an argument of the greater good though. Is that if we're able to bring down all of murder, and that's what basically what the movie is about, is that murder in DC where it's being tested it's gone. There's no more murder.
So
is that worth a couple of innocents being convicted?
again, the idea that I'm going to kill somebody isn't necessarily that I'm doing anything wrong. Like,
right. I'm not saying so. It's not an argument of whether you did anything wrong. It's the argument of that.
no, it definitely is. If murder is going to be stopped before it happens,
Right.
you could very potentially be stopping me from saving a lot of people from a terrible position. Like, so this is absolutely because your question is it moral to use this machine?
Yeah.
No. We don't know that murder was going to be a negative impact for society. It's
Interesting. Okay.
viable to like look into the individual, perhaps
Right.
send somebody to follow them, see what happens. But we don't necessarily know just because I was going to kill somebody if that was actually a act of violence or an act of defense, or if I was saving hundreds of thousands of lives because of some other scenario that weren't technically murders. We don't know.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. I think this goes. I mean, we're gonna talk more. I'm gonna talk more about morality. I'm probably not next time because I want to do a little more. I want to bring up some more stuff. I've been sprinkling in here and there, but we're definitely gonna go into this a little more. I mean, I kind of we're almost hitting our stop point right now. But okay, yeah, no, I think that's it's an interesting place to leave it on. Is that what would it take for a murder to be justified? There's some obvious examples, like someone has a gun out in the store, and then you just in the moment you're saving someone, right? Like you don't have time to think. And there's different circumstances that we can definitely get into. Like if someone's gonna financially destitute, 100,000 people, is it moral to take their life? A lot of people would argue yes, a lot of people argue no, which is really interesting to me. I really want, what I want? I want a large-scale study. I want the census. Forget all the boring stuff about the census. Get to the really interesting things about the census, right? What would it take for you to murder somebody? Like, give me a number. How many people need to how many people need to be, go broke because of a person? How many people need to be, enslaved because of a person? How many people need to be falsely accused and go to prison for life because of this person? Like all these different scenarios of bad things happening to other people because this person took advantage of a situation or the power or whatever. How many people? Like, is it one person? If this person sends one person to jail because they're a judge and they're biased against them, is that murder? Is that worthy of murder? Is it 100 people? Is it 100,000 people? At one point, and
Why then?
And why? Yeah, exactly why? Because it's a big number. Well, 100's a big number too. You're talking about 100 lives. Like that's a lot of people. Imagine them in front of you. Oh, now okay, does your number change now? Imagine you sitting in a circle with a dozen people. Would that be justified then? Because it doesn't.
Imagine you're having a conversation with one individual whose parents had that happen to them.
Exactly. So that's something that's really, I really want to that's something that's really always been fascinating to me is like pushing people to getting to that decision. It's like, well, where do you draw the line? Because in our head we think we know, but we don't. Because our framing of the situation. No, I don't know either. Well, we never had to be in a situation. That's why. That's always something that's really interesting to me.
That's why you do the trolley experiment before you have a gun.
Exactly. That's one of the prerequisites for owning a firearm is doing the trolley problem.
No, it's even better. Like the results, the answers don't actually impede on the gun license at all. But you have to have done this.
Yeah, exactly. Just so you understand the stakes. Like, no, you get it.
You have to have thought this out.
It's like, yeah, people are worried about like, will it be wrong? Like, should I kill the child? Should I kill the adult? Like, should I kill the 3 adults? It's like, will that stop me from getting it? I was like, no, none of it will stop you. You just need to understand
exactly
human life and your actions. Like I was reading.
No, because the reality is, if you have the ability to stop it because a firearm's sufficient, and you don't know what to do, you're not going to stop it.
Right.
So figure out what to do first, and then I'll give you a gun.
I was reading today stories about people who fire, or I guess it was last night, who will have dreams that they're being attacked, and they'll pick up their gun and they'll fire at what they thought was the attacker, and it'll just shoot through the wall and hit another apartment building, go through an apartment building. That's why they're talking about Full Metal Jackets versus versus hollow tip points or hollow jacket point, whatever. I think.
No, you were right the first time.
No, it has a proper name that they were talking about. We're talking about the difference between the two, and as a side note, before we end, the idea, I think one of the biggest disservices action movies and pop culture have done to the public when it comes to guns is the idea that you can just shoot people in the kneecaps, or you can just shoot people to wound them, and you can do that 100% of the time easily if you're trained to do it. I remember I did a tour of a police precinct when I was young, and I remember asking the question, like, they were showing us the gun, they're talking to us about firearm safety, about all the things in their tool belt, and I'm like, oh, can't you just, they're like, if you pick up the gun, you should be prepared for lethal force. Like, every single time you pick up a gun, it's to
Do not
end someone's
point
life.
a gun at something you don't plan on shooting.
Right.
Do not shoot something you don't plan on killing.
Right. And I'm like, well, can't you just, and I asked them, like, can't you just shoot, like, to wound them? And they're like, if first of all, if you're ever in a tense situation, aiming almost doesn't exist. You have training, and that's what muscle memory is for, but you're not thinking about aiming. You're shooting at center of mass, right? Is that you have any idea how hard it is to hit a knee of someone running away in a tense firefight? No, you're shooting center of mass, and that's usually deadly. And I was like, oh wow, that's different, because I'm a person of interest. Have you watched? Okay, it's another show about an AI that predicts terrorist attacks, but also is able to predict murders. So it's kind of in the same line of that. It predicts it, and so they go and stop the murder before it happens. But usually it's a different context of where it's actually bad people, and they're taking on like corrupt cops and drug rings and things like that. So it's not just like we're just arresting you because we think you're about to do something bad. But the protagonist, notorious for all the protagonists in that show only shoot people in the knees. That's it. Or they'll like shoot them like in a glancing shot like to their like arm, and then like it's hilarious. That apparently they're like so trained. They're so good at what they do. They can always hit people in the knees and incapacitate them.
I would like to ask the same question of like highly decorated special force officers.
Right.
Like because like you asked the police officer, and police officers have training, but ask the literal best of the best that the nation has to offer. Yeah. Like, yeah. Is this a thing that's even plausible? And if they still say no,
yeah.
Like,
and honestly, from the little research I've done, yeah, it's still because the thing is that there's so many factors that go into a firefight. If someone's standing still and you're relatively close, sure. If you're a good marksman, yeah, you can hit them. But also you got to factor in things like the inaccuracy of the gun itself. Like guns aren't 100% accurate. There's imperfections. Like muskets, muskets back in the
in my mind,
Revolutionary War were so inaccurate. They go everywhere.
It's like in my mind, I would love to ask like Chris Kyle that.
Yeah, right.
So he was like you are the literal best marksman. I know. You are literally the best marksman in U.S. history. Right. The best shot we have ever had.
Yeah.
Obviously,
that we know of.
Fair.
Black Ops.
Obviously, you've never been probably in a situation where you were aiming for the kneecap.
Yeah.
Like that's not what you do.
He aims for heads, which is
right.
Similar.
Well, actually, heart.
Oh, hearts,
but,
really?
Yeah, snipers don't aim for heads.
Really?
Yeah. The gun is way more powerful than it needs to be to kill you at center mass shots, and the higher probability of the hit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
But so they don't aim for head unless they have to.
That was that was the movie Shooter. That's what they did. He pulling off the insane headshots from far away.
Yeah, Shooter's a good movie.
Yeah, I like it.
But I would love to ask him, just like, because you're the person with the shot to do it, would this ever be something that you think you could do in a real situation?
Yeah.
And if he's like, yeah, no,
right.
then that to me is a huge argument that like this probably isn't just isn't a thing.
Yeah. Well, and like they're like double wielding pistols, and they're like shooting like a ton of people. Like it's very glorified. It's hilarious. That show I really enjoyed like the entire show, the entire arc. The characters were just I just loved all of the character arcs. The thing is that when it comes to the gunfights, they're so. It's so Hollywood, the way the gunfights are. But dude, I mean, I think we're coming up to our hard stop. We need to get the show on the road. And by show on the road, I mean by ending the show so I can get my other show on the road. And by other show, I mean a meeting about web design. So I think it's for sure that we have thought about this a lot. I'm going to bring up morality more because I'm fascinated by it. And there's a lot I want to learn about morality and like the ideas of morality and stuff like that. So definitely going to come up again. Maybe not next time, but maybe the time after next or so. In the meantime, Devin, where can people find you?
You can find me speakingindefense.com. You can find me on all the socials except Facebook under the same handle, Speaking Defense.
Nice. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I want you guys to check out my my food Instagram. I will say that as food Instagrams go, it's the most, as far as dishes go. I want to see the pictures.
Instagram famous.
As far as the actual dishes go, I'll say it's one of the most creative Instagrams out there that I've seen. I like experimenting, and I experiment with interesting flavors and combinations and styles. So yeah, definitely check that out. It's been a really fun project for me, and it gets such good engagement, dude. Like I have like almost all of my followers, like almost every single one of my posts. It's amazing, and it's very new, and I have a new active audience. But I wonder, yeah. So I actually need to. I think I've got more followers, so I think that statement's not true anymore. But yeah, okay. So its handle is Flavor by Luke. I realized almost like, hey, just find me. Flavor by Luke. It's fun. And I have a really cool website. I really like my website that I built for myself. It's dope. It's one of my favorites. In the meantime, we'll see you next week. Overthinking podcast.com. You can find the show notes that Devin spends a lot of time writing. Go read them. They're so good. They're just really fantastic. And if you have questions, quandaries, complaints, or you just want to verbally berate us for our ideas, then Overthinking Podcast Show at gmail.com. Thank you all. Where do we
Careful,
go from
Luke. It's kind of sounding like an outro.
I know it almost sounded like an outro. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me?
It's okay.
Thank you. Welcome to Afterthought. We're talking
Welcome
about
to
movies.
Afterthought. Cool. Yeah, just recently I watched Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you asked me what I thought about it, and I told you I was going to save it for the show.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We have 5 minutes.
Oh, no, it's good. Plenty of time. Because first, like, I actually loved the art style.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the one thing
It's also like my friends know because I'm really into anime.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I like before the story, before the plot, before the theme, before anything that you should care about. Mm-hmm. I care about the art style.
Right.
Like I want it to be a visually pleasing experience. Mm-hmm. And so like as an example, like it's probably one of the reasons that I dog so hard on like Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, really?
Their art sucks.
Really?
Like, yeah. And it's just having seen such beautiful art in anime that I'm like, yeah. But so in that sense, like, I don't usually like I don't care about the animation styles of like Pixar. Like, I don't complain about it, but like, I'm not impressed by it.
Right.
I was thoroughly impressed by the art style. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to look like a comic book, and it pulled that off so well.
It did really good. Yeah, it's also, like, I learned a little bit about the art style and the fact that they're trying to get it trademarked.
Really?
Because
I mean, I'm not surprised.
It's actually, and you can see this if you just look for it in certain elements, but you can't see it, obviously, all the time. Mm-hmm. But the art style is literally just dots.
Yeah.
And it makes a really interesting look. But, so I loved the art style. It was a fun movie.
Yeah. Definitely fun.
There were massive like unfixable plot holes.
Yeah.
So like the one that bugged me was it's giving us the intro to the different Spider-Man that it's gonna focus the most on.
Right.
Like Spider-Gwen and the Peter Parker from the other. And like that makes sense, and it made sense that they had to at that point like rush the other Spider-Man that they were going to use.
And they had to rush him, which is unfortunate. Yeah.
And like for runtime, like it makes sense. And that's like I'm not going to complain about that. What I am going to complain about is Aunt May opening the door, shocked to find Spider-Man at the door. Like Spider-Man, not Spider-Man, not Peter Parker.
But
then having a long conversation with them in her house.
And then leading
them to where the other Spider-Men are waiting.
Yeah.
Like, she is either, like, just messing with them because it's fun for her, or they didn't think that scene through.
Yeah. No, that definitely was the one scene that I think that got dogged on the hardest. It doesn't, it doesn't
work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Unfortunately, I love Spider Noir. I want him as a main character in his own series. I just want 3 hours of just him talking and me just sitting back and just vetching.
The other big complaint that I have about like actual plot is the Spider-Man getting there in the first place. So like Peter Parker gets smashed into this machine, and then all of a sudden all these other Spider-Men pop up here. And like, if I accept that something about the machine can do that, the question is what can do that?
Right.
Well, he was Peter Parker, and it sent back the first guy we meet that it sent back was a Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's Peter Parker. But then there's other ones who aren't Peter Parker. Right. So it's like, so it's not Peter's DNA. Maybe it's Spider DNA.
Yeah. But then
you have the girl with the machine, and she's there, and it's not her. Yeah. She doesn't have Spider DNA. The machine doesn't have Spider DNA.
Right.
So there's no rhyme or reason for how it actually picked Spider-Man that it brought here, because there's no consistent theme between them, except their universe regards them as Spider-Man, but I doubt the machine can be meta.
Yeah.
And then in that too, like they used it as a plot hole fixing device because they wanted him to meet Gwen before the event happened.
Yeah.
So it just sent her back in time.
Yeah.
Because
it can do that.
Right.
I mean, if it's tearing holes. Oh, that's one thing. Oh, that's one thing I didn't get to mention that's what I wanted to say. Around the time travel, I think this is my guy warning me. Oh no, this is okay. This.
But I thought the movie was.
Yeah. When it comes to the time travel, with the possibilities, the theories of time travel, one thing that's commonly said is about wormholes. And the really interesting thing about wormholes is they happen all the time, but they pop out of existence as soon as they pop into existence because the amount of energy needed to hold them open is so insane. And the wormholes that do pop in existence are minuscule. They're tiny. To get one to fit a person through would require, I think, more energy than I forget what it was. It was I was rewatching a video about it. The amount of energy it would take is something that we could not feasibly actually create.
It would take like a dying neutron star.
I think it's something a little bigger, even bigger than I wish I could remember. I just remember that's dude. Sometimes, dude.
Is this based on Hawking's research into wormholes?
I think so. He took Einstein, Hawking, and another physicist.
Because Hawking himself disproved most of his work on wormholes.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know. I just something I wanted to bring up. Like I said, I don't. That's always been interesting to me as well. The idea of people oh yeah, just wormholes, or we still don't know anything about them, but the things that we do know about them kind of says that we're not going to be able to do that for the next 1,000 years unless some miraculous jump in science and discovery happens.
Well, it is an exponential growth curve. So.
Which also is interesting in terms of exponential growth. I watched a really good video demonstrating that, kind of visualizing it, and that most people don't think of. If something grows every second, the last second is when it grows the entire half of it. So like with the coronavirus, if it's exponentially growing, then the last day that it's growing, if let's say 1 million people are infected, the last day another 1 million are infected, right? So it's half of the.
Depends on the growth model.
If it's growing double.
Double. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Sorry, that's what I meant. But yeah, we're coming up to the end. Spider-Verse definitely. enjoyed the movie. The second time I didn't enjoy it as much because the plot holes were more glaring. A lot of the pizzazz and newness and freshness of it was kind of over because I already seen it. So the second time I definitely enjoyed it less, but still enjoyed it. I just, yeah. It was exciting. It was a really fresh take at superheroes.
The shift right before the Army of the Hero to present the third arc, where Miles' dad is giving him a pep talk through the door.
Yeah.
That was such a like forced moment to me. Like
Really?
Like I've heard people talk about how it's no Uncle Ben, but like
Right.
more than that, like his dad is a phenomenal dad. We don't see anything but great things from him, and then he's apologizing in this moment. And it's like, no, that's not what the good dad should do right now.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. There's and that's the thing is that
people are right. It was no Uncle Ben speech.
Yeah, no.
But
I mean, it wasn't supposed to be, but I mean, I guess it was kind of whatever. It was, but dude, yeah, that was the cultural impact of that too. Was just I don't know. It was just that I was so surprised that movie was made, and I was so surprised that it ended like that. I was like, wow, this is. It gives me hope that there's going to be other superhero movies like that aren't just hero beats a bad guy. Yay, we think he's gonna lose, but then he wins. Woohoo.
My other one that I just gotta say this is I told my girlfriend I think Stan Lee would have been very proud of that movie.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. 100%.
It did what he always bragged about what Spider-Man can do.
Right.
Anybody can be Spider-Man.
Exactly. And didn't he have a cameo? Wasn't that one of his last cameos? Yeah, in the store.
Was it actually him? I thought it was. I don't know.
I can't remember what his last cameo was because the movies are filmed in different order. Yeah. So either his last cameo was Infinity War, or it was that movie. I forget which one. But dude, I need to go. Good episode. Good talk. And then we'll see you guys all next week. Goodbye.
Peace.